Here comes a new challenger!
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Terry Smash analysis. Though in this case it'll be a bit different, as I play Terry, and me personally, I don't really want to tell you his strengths and weaknesses, but I guess I have to, right? And so this video will kind of be formatted as what I don't and do like about the character. As you may know, I've made two separate videos about my mains, those being Ryu Ken in the first video, and Terry Min Min in the second video. The reason why I play them, at least the gist of it, is because they're all from fighting games, and I want to represent my favorite genre of, well, gaming. So of course I play those four characters. And of course I'll be having analysis on each of those other three characters, but for today we're going to be focusing on Terry, because I feel Terry is definitely the most overhyped out of the three, in my opinion. I think out of the four fighting game characters we have, I think Min Min is the best, but we'll get to that another time. Now, obviously you're not going to compare Terry to Min Min, or you're mainly comparing Terry to Ryu and Ken. In this video we won't be doing that. I'll be having a separate video that kind of condenses some of my points from this video and points that I'll make in my Ryu analysis and Ken analysis. So with that all being said, let's get started with things that I like about Terry, and we're going to end things with what I don't like about the character, and then we'll have a final judgment. So, things I really love about the character. Let's talk about that. One, I love his ground movement, right? You know, most characters in this game, sometimes they feel a bit too fast, or they feel a bit too slow, you know, but for Terry, he feels just right? I like characters with pretty good movement like that, you know, just similar to Marth. I like characters that can move along the ground really well, you know, and Terry he just has that sweet spot for me. Now on the air, well, you know, but that's a whole different topic, and yeah, we'll get to it. But on the ground, I really love his ground movement, alright? I think it's one of the best qualities about this character. If he didn't have the ground movement that he did, I would assure you he would suck, you know, because he can weave in and out of things, right? Say your opponent is at ledge, right? They're at ledge, and they're gonna do an option. Say they were to get up attack, you could just go, you just back off and then go for a burn knuckle, something like that, right? That sort of design, that about Terry is really cool. I really like that. With his movement, he is able to do things that not a lot of other characters can really do, you know? And with how he's designed, obviously in one-on-ones, he will always face his opponent, therefore he has something that only one of three characters have, of course the other two being Ryu and Ken. We'll call them Shotos for now. You know, Terry's not a Shoto, but whatever. Is that he has a backdash, and his backdash is great. Right, this forward dash, kinda lame, but this backdash, really good. Right? He hurtbox shifts in a way that's basically hard to hit him when he's backdashing like that, right? So, in terms of his ground movement, spectacular. I love it. Deeply love it. Alright, another thing is that I like he feels powerful, right? Everything he does has this crunch to it. Alright? All these moves have these satisfying hit effects, because obviously they come from, you know, Fatal Fury and King of Fighters, obviously. I mean, hey, when he gets knocked down, he has, listen, hold on. You'll hear it, right? It's like the sound effects from those games. That's really cool. I love that he has this sort of stuff. So when playing as him, when you hit something, when you hear it, it's very satisfying. It sounds satisfying, it feels satisfying because of the added hit stop that this character has, along with the Shotos, right? They have added hit stop. Because obviously, when you hit a move, there's a few frames where it kind of pauses for a little bit. For these characters, they have it even more so than others, right? So it's very satisfying in that sense. You know, so like I said, he hits hard and it feels nice. All right. He also looks really cool, right? I mean, let's face it. All right. Ryu and Ken they're based on the Street Fighter 2 Super Turbo designs. So in terms of like personality and stuff, they're only going off the boundaries of that. Whereas with Terry, he was specifically designed to be cool. I mean, they even made it so they changed his backspin kick. This move is so lame in the actual game. Like, imagine Gan and F tilt. That's basically backspin kick. All right, it's so lame in its original games, but they made it look super cool. You know, and more to that, even his design is much different from his other appearances, like his pants. As you can see, you know, his pants are kind of like touching the ground itself, you know, stuff like that. Details like that. They added elements from different versions of the character to make him feel cool. And I love that about Terry, because he genuinely feels cool. Beautiful, just straight up beautiful. I love it. All right. And, you know, even though I don't play casually too often, I gotta say that, you know, this Final Smash, as someone who plays these games, this is the sickest thing they've ever done. Alright, out of all the DLC characters, it's my favorite Final Smash, but that's because, you know, I played King of Fighters and I've played Fatal Fury, and so seeing that sort of stuff is great. I love, you know, and speaking of, you know, specials, hey, I mean, what can I say? Having moves like this, and, you know, like, that's sick. That is super sick. I love a lot about what this character has. Alright, but now let's talk about, you know, because it wasn't that big of a list, alright? Like I said, he looks cool, he feels cool, he feels strong. That's great. I love that about Terry. But now let's go over the things that I really don't like about the character. Well, actually, let's name one more good thing. I guess I should say this. His ledge trapping and, his ledge trapping is really good. Oh, and I guess this move is also really good, right? Because you can actually combo from this at like mid%. Let me show that off real quick here. Man, I am. Oh, you get the general gist. I've done it before, but I don't know why I'm failing now. Never mind, guys. I suck at the video game. There you go. So something like that can work. All right. I just keep missing it out because I keep doing a short hop. I'm trying to do a full hop. Oh, this game sometimes. Anyways, but that's neither here nor there, right? Regardless, when it comes to it, that's great. And like I said, ledge trapping, amazing. All right, I guess I should have mentioned his moves feel lagless. All right, you really like I'm gonna hold shield after I land with a down air. Look at that. When I land with nair, or you know, it really doesn't feel like he has any lag, right? Even with moves like power dunk, especially if you know how to cancel it, like it essentially you essentially have like no lag, right? So, you know, it's pretty much hard to react, or like hard to kind of punish Terry in some instances. So you have to like know how to do it. So, but yeah, the ability to spam aerials and spam moves like that and have this, you know, great stuff about Terry. But now let's talk about the things I really don't like about it. All right, let's start with a few negatives, that being, I don't like his combo structure. It is very linear in comparison to some other characters. I would argue that Terry has some of the most linear combos in this game, which is kind of unfortunate. Why do I say this? Well, say hypothetically, we'll use this as an example. A good starter combo is like landing with an aerial, down tilt, F tilt, burn knuckle, right? If you do chop, now that's great, you know, 40 something percent. If you want more damage, how did I get that? I'm trying to, man, what is wrong? I have to replace this GameCube controller sometime. Or maybe it's just that I suck. Maybe, you know what? Maybe it is that I just suck. But you got the general gist. You can go into like from forward air to down tilt. I did it earlier and I don't know what happened. Yeah, okay, there you go. You get a bit more damage. but it's the same thing, right? The only difference is your starter is Nair versus Fair, right? You get a bit more damage off of the Fair, but that's about it. All right, like that's all right. That's cool, I guess. But then you start to realize that, like, once you start getting into Terry, you'll start to realize a lot of his moves or a lot of his combos kind of feel samey at a point, like using chop into combos, right? Down air to chop, or like let's we try this. Man, is Marth just that awkward to hit? Maybe. There's a reason why I have Marth. I always have a reason as to why I have the second character be the second character. But, like, you get the general gist, right? Like, sure, they feel like very powerful combos, but they kind of get samey after a while. And that's sort of one of the issues I have with Terry. You know, in terms of his combo structure, it's very linear. It works, but it's very linear. Another thing that I don't like about Terry is that I mentioned he's very powerful, and that's great. That's a great feeling to have. But in terms of actually playing him, you may notice that a lot of his moves send your opponent a fair distance away, even around like 30%. You know, you'll notice that your opponent, a lot of your moves just really knock away your opponent. And sure, it's big damage. I'm not arguing. I'm not debating that. But generally with Terry, it'll take around 2 to 3 interactions to actually take a stock. Because, you know, obviously Terry, to play him, is a bait and punish character. So you can utilize his projectile and his other strong moves, like spacing fair, very good. F-tilt, as you can see, it has invulnerability on the leg. Very good. But overall, one, his combos feel very linear, and then 2, he knocks away your opponent too much. So when it comes to it, it's kind of hard to reset people with Terry, in my opinion. Like, sure, if you knock down someone with F-tilt, then obviously, you know, they're gonna try to move away. But if they DI up, that, you know, what are you really gonna do from there? You know what I mean? So, and it's just regular DI. I didn't even STI from that. Alright. And speaking of STI, it really does hurt Terry. Now I know the joke is that, you know, like, oh, just STI out of the Shotos and Terry's combos. You'll do well, you'll be fine. Now with Shotos, you know, not to get too much into it, there is counterplay for that sort of stuff. However, for Terry, because a lot of his moves knock you away, it's kind of hard to, like, reset people, right? Because what are your low knockback moves that you can use for combos? Well, you have chop, right? But yeah, it's good, but you know, once it gets to higher percents, you know, it's really gonna start knocking them away. So let's say around 60, right? 60. All right, what other low knockback moves do you have? Well, that is up air, which getting it from the front is not the easiest thing. You basically have to roar, and then there you go. You could go for something like, but let's see what else. Well, down tilt. That's pretty much it. All of his other moves knock you away a fair distance, right? So my point here being is that there isn't an opportunity where you can reset someone with a move that will, like, kind of make your opponent kind of afraid. You know what I mean? Like with Ryu or Ken, at least you have like those light up tilts, your light down tilts, and you have your proximity heavy jab and stuff like that, you know, where it'll always keep your opponent close and you can make your opponent do a panic option and you're still right on top of them. With Terry, that's not the case. You'll generally have like 2 to 3 interactions before you take out your opponent, which, in my opinion, kind of sucks, right? Kind of lame. That's what I think about that, right? So, in that case, generally what people say is his strength is, well, Go, right? Because with Go, he has access to, right? Now, Buster Wolf, in reality, is only good for early percent combos, which, I mean, very, very strong early percent combos. I'm not denying that. You know, it deals quite a bit of damage. You know, like that chop down tilt F tilt, instead of ending it with a burn uncle, or oops. No, we can't have him on the platform. That's a lot of damage. You know, that's basically near 60. So in that case, having Go is powerful, right? It makes your opponent kind of afraid. But Buster Wolf is only really good for early percent combos because at that point, once you reach like your 80s or stuff, you're mainly relying on down tilt to jab. But there is a way to SDI it. I know there is a way because I've had several people who I've played against get out of my down tilt jab Buster Wolf, so that's always fun. It is possible. I just don't know the exact DI, and even if I did, I'm not going to tell you because I want to win more, you know what I mean? But you get my gist. It's only really good for low percent combos. At high percent, you better hope that, you know, this into this connects. You know what I mean? That's all I'm saying. So then you have Power Geyser, however you want to say it. All right, let's do this. Let's have Marth at around, I think I'm holding the correct direction. Let's have it more mid-stage. Oh man, I'm trying to remember where the correct DI is. I can't remember. Well, just know there is a way to DI, or maybe Martha's just too light, but there is a way to DI Power Geyser that, in a sense, you'll live much longer than you might think you'll live, especially since with Terry, if you're playing Terry with Go, generally a lot of people will throw out a few moves, maybe even stale some of them. So when you stale Power Geyser, obviously it's not even going to kill at late percents, but you get my general gist, is that there's a point to where I think you have to DI down and away, you'll live Power Geyser a lot longer, right? Like there's combos into it, but once you know how to DI it, you'll survive. That is also to say that if you DI in from the up tilt, they'll miss the Power Geyser entirely. Of course, you have to be weary of something like that happening, but you can avoid it. So there are methods, and even if you expect to get hit by it, then you could DI down and away, you'll live longer. So when it comes to killing, you're generally relying on a lot of reads, right? And, you know, reads aren't that bad to have when you have very powerful moves. But in terms of all your kill moves, without Go, well, your only kill moves are this, and this. But Rising Tackle kills very late. Burn Knuckle's very slow, so you're mainly relying on light on the ground, right? Which light kills, it kills early at ledge, but mid stage it's not really gonna, you know, you're gonna live a lot longer. And well, you're not gonna throw out Power Dunk. I mean, you can if you do it like that, where you'll have no landing leg basically. But if you try to do it out of a combo, you may have seen clips of people DIing to where they pop out from the left or they pop out down, and they don't get hit by the power geyser. Or, sorry, power dunk. So in that sense, killing can be much more of a gamble. It also doesn't help that Terry, in my opinion, while he has great ground movement, as I've stated before, his air movement leaves a lot to be desired. You're generally relying on moves to boost you forward, or boost you in a certain direction, or whatever the case may be. Right? No, that's fine. However, I would argue that, in my opinion, I think Terry, in this instance, like, let's say you try to get in with Bare Knuckle. Bare Knuckle only has invincibility on the hand. So characters with swords or projectiles, they're gonna hit him. Well, you can use Crack Shoot. And Crack Shoot's pretty fast. It is hard to react to, but Crack Shoot has no invincibility. And it's not like he actually jumps projectiles or anything like that. You know what I mean? Now, I know Crack Shoot has some jank where you can get the first hit, but we're not going to rely on that because that can just happen randomly, so we're not going to be talking about that. But you get my point, right? So when it comes to approaching, he gets knocked away. And then you have his projectile. Now, his projectile only goes along the ground. He has 2 different speeds, which is fine. It's great. But it only goes along the ground, which for some characters that can be more or less annoying. In the air, however, he only has this. That's nice. It's essentially a shockwave move, you know, pushes people away much farther than this version does. It's even stronger. That's great. But I would not say these are good tools to deal with people camping you out, basically. If you're being camped out or you're fighting against a sortie, it kind of does get a bit hard to get in. Now, I know what you may be thinking. You might be thinking that I'm trying to argue that if you pick the perfect option all the time, Terry may struggle. In a sense, I can kind of get that idea. But I'm not even trying to say that. What I'm trying to say is that it doesn't matter what type of player you are, as long as you have a good general gist of Terry, then, well, what can I say? He's pretty much done for, because he'll at times struggle to kill and rely on reads, and you know, he has to throw out moves which lead to him being punished, right? Or he gets his combos, but then, you know, like I said, if you know what you're doing, you don't really have to worry about his combos. So let's bring in Marth, for example. Marth, this character, Marth, you might know as this move. This move is essentially, you could call it a dragon punch, right? And a dragon punch in most fighting games, all right, have frame 1 invincibility. As you see there, he is invulnerable. They go all the way up into the sky. All that sort of stuff, right? Okay, cool. A lot of Terry's combos, you may notice, kind of look fake in some points. Marth is a good way of basically seeing how fake your Terry combo is. Because even though the combo counter may say you got a true combo, that's not always the case. The combo counter is very weird in how it works in Smash. Because if you DI a certain way, or you do something, it won't be true, right? It says it's true, but it's not true. So I would not have the combo meter as a reliable source. It can help, it can definitely tell you some things, but overall it's not a very reliable thing. So like, as an example, just up B out of down tilt. Or, I mean, sure, you can't up B out of jab, but, you know, you can't up B out of that. But when it comes to stuff like down tilt, F tilt, you can up B out of that. If you try to go for this, you can up B out of that. Characters with reversals kind of mess up Terry. So Terry basically has to rely on reading your opponent. However, I would say that's only really beneficial in a stage like FD, because FD, there are no platforms. So if Marth does, if he does this, then obviously you can punish him for doing that if you read that he was going to do that. However, in Ultimate, you can ban stages. If you ban a stage where there's basically a platform readily available to you, especially like regular Battlefield, Marth can just up B all the way to the top platform, and there's not much you could do about it. You know what I mean? With Terry, unless you parry it, you won't have enough time to like go for an up air, up B. You know what I mean? Now, with that all being said, I do think Terry is a strong Wi-Fi character. I think he's better than Ryun can on Wi-Fi. Because like I said, I mentioned earlier, he just spam moves like it's no one's business. Right? I would say on Wi-Fi he's better, because it's just harder to react to things that he does. Because he can just throw out moves, and what are you going to do about it? You're not going to be able to react in this netcode. Okay? So in that sense, I would say he's better. But I'm trying to focus on offline. And on offline, I do think he is weak in these aspects. Plus, let's talk about his edge guarding. His edge guarding's not that great. I mean, you can throw out some moves or whatever, but you can't go too deep because you might mess up an input or whatever. Or even if you don't, you can't really go too far off stage. You can go decently far, but not too far. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to go too crazy, right? All right, hold on. All right, there you go. Like, you don't want to go too far. Because if you do, well, you might find yourself in a boatload of trouble. Now let's talk about edge guarding Terry. When it comes to Terry and being edge guarded, it's very rough for him. Because let's use 3 different examples, okay? So, as I've stated before, when it comes to Terry's move list, only 2 of his moves have true invincibility out of all his specials. And that is Rising Tackle, which has invincibility on the body on frame 5. It loses it once he basically gets off the ground, and he only has invincibility on the legs. And Power Dunk, where when he reaches the apex of the attack, he loses the invincibility. Right? So let's think about this in practice. Say you are Terry, and you got knocked away something fierce, right? Well, obviously you can use moves like this, you can use moves like crack shoot, you can use moves like this, whatever the case may be. And you also have the main recovery being Rising Tackle. And Rising Tackle, even without input, still has invincibility on the legs. Recovering low is kind of Terry's only best option. Because if he tries to recover high, sure, he can go for a landing down with Power Dunk. But if you're not doing it right, or if the character you're fighting against is really good at edge guarding, like, say, a sortie like Marth, or Lucina, or Zoners, they're going to beat you out. Because Samus Charge Shot, as an example, is going to beat through Terry's down B, right? Just as an example. Right? So when recovering low, you don't really want to go for Power Dunk, because if you go for Power Dunk, you can make it back, but your opponent has enough time to react to be able to go down there with you and basically swipe you out of the air, right? And obviously, if you're swiped out of the air, you're not going to go for Power Dunk again, because you're just going to go way too low for that to mean anything. Even if you were to have your double jump, that's not going to matter. So at that point, you can basically only rely on Crack Shoot, as an example, or Burn Knuckle to make it back. Now, getting back to ledge, for some characters, they can beat him up pretty easily. Marth, for example, could, if you're trying to go below ledge, could just do that. There's not much Terry can do. Terry's just forced to attack and try to make it back. Whatever the case may be, right? Some characters have counters that can hit Terry, so they could just, like, as an example again with Marth, run off stage and counter. And since all of his moves have a hitbox, right? All of his recovery moves have hitboxes, you're gonna get countered at some point, right? So when it comes to edge guarding him, he kind of loses to it. It's just that the thing about this game, or what you may notice from this game, is that not a lot of people edge guard. I think that's kind of just the fault of the players, in my opinion, because I think there are a lot of characters in this game that are really good at edge guarding and they don't abuse it. I'll go over that in a separate video, but you get my gist. So with Terry being relatively easy to edge guard, in my opinion, I think he's really easy to edge guard, especially if you have like the right type of characters or whatever. And it's, you know, it's not like a small amount of characters, right? It's not like just specific matchups. I'm talking about like characters with zoners with strong projectiles. I'm talking about sorties, which there are a lot of. You know, I'm talking about characters with even more powerful moves that aren't disjoints. As an example, Ganon, we'll use Ganon as an example. His Nair is easily gonna stomp out Terry as an example. Obviously, Ganon doesn't beat Terry, but I'm just using that as an example, right? So it's not like a small number of characters. It's not like a thing where it's like, oh, Steve's up smash is bad because Palu can nair through it. You know, that's just bad for that specific matchup. I'm just talking about, you know, a variety of characters. So that's one thing. So overall, I would say that Terry, in terms of being edge guarded, kind of loses hard to it, in my opinion. From my experience, I've had people who I've played against who've edge guarded me. There's just not much I can do about it, right? It gets, you know, so in theory, you shouldn't, if you're playing against Terry, if your character's good at edge guarding, then there would never be a reason for you to ever worry about Go. Because I understand, guys, we're not Terminators, we're people. So when you see that flashing icon, obviously you're going to be afraid of things like this because it kills so early. And plus, both of these special moves have 7% armor, right? Let me see if I can... Whatever. I don't really know how to get him to just jab me. But you get the basic premise, right? It has some armor. So obviously a Terry can just throw these moves out there if you're not being careful. But I would argue that if your character can abuse his disadvantage, because he, in my opinion, he does have a terrible disadvantage, then you don't have to worry about Go. And if your character's got edge guarding, then you won't really see that Go appear, right? So those are gripes I have with Terry. I think Terry needs a bit more hit stun on some of these moves, right? Because it becomes to a point where some of combos just don't work. You know, they're not really that true. I think they need to reduce the STI multiplier on this second-hit jab, because you may not know this, but the second-hit jab is a 2-hit. As an example, Bowser, you know, it's just one character, obviously, but Bowser, as an example, can tough guy through it. Other characters can just hard SDI because of this part of the move. And it's not like, I mean, sure, you could go jab one into the into like, you know, your combo, but you can't do like jab, or you can't really do like jab one rising tackle. You have to do jab two rising tackle for that to work, right? As an example. And if you try going for power dunk, well, like I said, they can SDI in or out, and you'll get punished, essentially. So it's stuff like that that I have gripes with Terry. Now, in my opinion, I still think, even with what I listed, I still think Terry's a high-tier character because of his movement. Because of his movement, and because of his ledge trapping, and essentially his ladless aerials, he can throw out moves and get away with it. And he still has true combos, right? Like, he still has true combos. It's just that, in a sense, some of the, you know, some of the ones that people may say are true combos aren't really that true. You know what I mean? And his actual true combos are, you know, they deal damage, but it is what it is, right? They deal damage, but don't expect to, like, get hit by these too often, right? Terry's got big hit boxes, but, you know, that's sort of my gripes with Terry, is basically what I'm trying to get at. But overall, I still think he's high tier because you can utilize moves like this. You can throw out your basically lagless moves, right? He still kills relatively early if he gets some of his combos. I mean, they use this as an example. You know, like, that's, you know, you catch your opponent with that, yeah, they're dead. You know what I mean? So stuff like that is what makes Terry good, in my opinion. So, and like I said, the fact that he could juke you and stuff, great. So I think he's a high tier character. That's basically my final verdict. I think he's a high tier character. I just think he has some flaws that don't make him a top tier, as some people may claim him to be. I do think on Wi-Fi he's much better because, like I said, you just can't react to some of his stuff. You know, some of the stuff he throws out. But offline you can, and in my opinion, it's just some of his weaknesses. You know, I love Terry. I love what they've done with this character. I love a lot of what he has and what he does and how he feels. I love how he sounds, all this sort of stuff. But in my personal opinion, the two things that I really don't like about him, like, out of everything I mentioned, the two things I really don't like about him is the amount of overhype he gets when people don't really know how to exploit this character in ways that you should be exploiting his weaknesses. And his combos are very linear. I don't feel as expressive with him as I do Ryu and Ken. But what makes me keep playing Terry is just his movement, you know? His air movement can be sus, but his ground movement's great. And ground movement for me is much more important than air movement unless the character specifically relies on their air movement to be good, right? Like Jigglypuff as an example, you know, I don't care for Jigglypuff's ground speed. I care for Jigglypuff's air speed. But that's basically the video. Do you agree with me or do you disagree with me? Let me know in the comments below. I just wanted to shed light on Terry. Like I said, I still think he's a great character. I just don't think that he's as great as people may think he is. I don't think he's as great as people will make him out to be. There are flaws with the character. There are genuine flaws, you know. Like, sure, you have obnoxious moves that knock you away, but ultimately, he still takes 2 to 3 interactions to basically kill you. His edge guarding is not that great. His ledge trapping is great, but that's about it. You know, he has a great up out of shield, but if you're being careless, obviously you're gonna get hit by it. But if you space out your moves or whatever, there's not really a chance where Terry's gonna hit you with this. And without a platform, you know, once he lands to the ground, sure, he has low lag, but it's not like you're punishing him the moment he lands and then you punish him. No, you're gonna hit him while he's in the air. Stuff like that. Like I said, not a bad character at all. I love Terry, I do. But I don't think he should be as overhyped as he is, in my opinion. Obviously, with offline not really being much of an option, we can't really see that for ourselves, right? Maybe I'm wrong. You know, maybe when offline comes back, we'll see Riddles go crazy and all this stuff. But for me personally, I don't see him better than Ryu. I don't see him better than Ken. I'll get to those videos when I do. But for now, that is the analysis. I hope you enjoyed. If you could, please subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. You know, hey, we got to 200 this year. You know, we're in 200. Let's try reaching 300 before the end of the year, all right? It'd really mean a lot to me if we could do that. Hopefully we can, because boy oh boy, you know, YouTube doesn't really like helping small people like me, and so it would really mean a lot to me if you'd help me out a little bit. We can discuss in the comments below. Do you, like I said, do you agree? Do you disagree? You know, bring up your own points, and who knows, maybe in a future video, I'll discuss Terry again, thinking and rethinking some of my thoughts. But right now, these are my current thoughts on the character. I love him, I do, but like I said, I just don't think he's as hyped. I think he's just so overhyped, you know, because he's the new guy, he's the DLC, you know, he's the cool kid, you know, he's the cool guy around. But otherwise, not much else to say. I'll see you guys in the next video, whatever the case that may be, or whenever that is, sorry. And I just hope you have a great rest of your day. Peace.
You can be